Alright, good morning. Welcome to Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And I am actually heading over to do a Darwin mission called Darwin's Orchid. It's part of the Darwin and Dickens conspiracy. And what I want to talk about, outside of my horrible, horrible driving, seems like whenever I play a video game, I just can't keep on the road. Perhaps it's just a desire to actually hit things without consequences. Regardless. What I want to talk about today, whoa, definitely did not mean that one, is basically historical things as noted in fiction. So historical references and nods in fictional storylines. And Assassin's Creed, as a series, is very good about this because it takes place, most of the action, I should say, takes place in a historical time period. In the case of Syndicate, in Victorian London. So, the right way to kind of have the historical references, or the way that I think is the best, I should say, I shouldn't overtly judge, is the way that's generally done in most Assassin's Creed games I've played, where it's more of a subtle reference as opposed to as opposed to a non-subtle thing. So, for example, towards the start of this game, Jacob Fry, who's the brother of Evie, who I'm playing as Evie, so. But anyway, Jacob Fry has a run-in with Charles Dickens, literally runs into Charles Dickens, and causes Dickens to drop several sheets of paper. And Dickens' response is to say, "Bloody Drood, I'll never finish it at this rate." Which, you know, for someone like me who's familiar with Dickens' works, I find that to be a very, very funny thing for him to have said. And it's a pretty good reference. Now, you know, and if you're not familiar with it, what it can inspire people to do is to look it up and figure out what he's talking about and maybe take an interest in the history around you. So, I'm to Darwin now, so we're going to take a break to listen to what Darwin wants, who, if you don't know, is a historical character. Whoa.
My young Frederick, I'm sorry to be so blunt, but I need to ask a favor of you. A delivery awaits me at the docks, a very rare orchid, all the way from the island of Madagascar. But there is a problem. One of my associates wants the flower for himself. He sent ruffians to collect it, if you can believe that.
Okay. So I need to beat these guys.
I need you to collect it for me first.
Alright, so I need to get all the way back up there to the docks. Oh. Oh, so I'm in a race against time. I've forgotten that this was a race against time. Okay, come on, come on. Need to hijack and go drive like the Dickens. Okay, so yeah, that's a good way to reference history, and yeah, and so the thing about, I think a lot of people, about us in particular, actually, I can get to it a lot quicker from if I go just right here. Free run down, okay. Okay, good. I've located it, and I've got some people to take out. Okay. Let's do some fighting now. Okay. So, like I said, the historical stuff is pretty fun. Oh, I have to retrieve it, and right now I can't be fighting these guys. Retreat, retreat, retreat. Uh-oh, I think I'm gonna fail it. Oh, no, I'm good, I'm good. Scary part. So, right, I'm getting distracted by the fighting again. So, one of the problems with historical references in video games, or really any medium, is this is the fact that can't speak right now. Is that we as human beings tend to perceive and view anything we see, anything we see or read as truth. It tends to kind of bypass our normal doubting minds, and we perceive it as truth. Whatever it may be is absolutely the truth. Now, so the problem with that is obvious in that we're watching something and it automatically will be perceived as truth, even if it's not quite accurate. And I have numerous examples of this. Probably one of the most flagrant examples that pretty much everyone believed was the book, The Da Vinci Code. Now, part of the problem was he based a lot of it on actual things, but what people didn't quite recognize or realize was that a good chunk of Da Vinci Code was based upon basically just rumors, innuendos, things like that, and actually a good chunk of it was based upon anti-Catholic propaganda, some of which had actually come from such organizations as the Ku Klux Klan and places like that. And he also would present these theories as absolute fact. So, you know, he'd say, this is 100% fact, everybody acknowledges and knows this, when in fact, it was just a theory that had not been proven. And even people who supported these theories were upset with him doing it this way simply because yeah, it devalued the theory. It made it, you know, seem like only nut jobs believed that. And it just just didn't help anybody in that theory. So, yeah, so I'd recommend read Da Vinci Code and then actually research what everybody's saying about it. I'll give you a few examples after I speak to Mr. Darwin here.
Ah, thank you, my young friend, thank you. This little orchid may seem inconsequential, but it holds secrets which could potentially change our very understanding of the world. It would have been a shame to lose it. A shame indeed. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, honestly, yeah, if it's orchids, it should have gone to Nero Wolf. That's all I'm saying. Nero Wolf, orchids, it works. So, let's see, where shall I go next? Let's see, I've got a cargo hijack I can attempt. That's right nearby. So, another example, I can give a couple of examples of what I'm trying to say about conspiracy theories and that sort of, okay, yeah. Brain not currently awake. So, one of the examples I'm going to give on... Oop, hit the wrong button. I was trying to go to roof. Take this person out. Okay. Need to reduce the distance to my target, which is over here, and... Darn it! I've lost it! Ah!
There you go.
It's been... I'll have to go over here to hijack it. Ugh. That can happen sometimes. But, yeah, not conspiracy theory. It's, basically historical things in novels that aren't quite accurate, so that gives people kind of the wrong idea of the history of it. A recent movie, which shall remain nameless, had a statement in it about... I was trying to go somewhere else. The Washington Monument in Washington, D.C., which...
That's it.
Which, basically the statement was that the Washington Monument was built by slave labor, and you know, that was confirmed by several people, and everybody was kind of, you know, all shocked. Huh, that was way too easy. But the interesting thing, historically speaking, now, a lot of buildings built in the same time period, we have historical records that come right out and say, yes, this was built by slave labor. The Washington Monument is one of the few that we don't have the records that state it was built by slave labor. And while it was built during the same time period and is generally considered to have been built by slave labor, it's the one building that there's absolutely no proof it was built by slave labor. I mean, there's more than one building, obviously, that has that, but it's interesting. Of all the buildings in Washington, D.C. that we know for a fact was built by slave labor, the movie makers picked the one that, obviously, you know, we don't have any records that it was built by slave labor. So that's Fight Club. I can go all kinds of fun places. So, yep, that's kind of the point I'm making, is basically encouraging you, you know, games like Assassin's Creed has some really great history in it. And I'm happy about that. I like history, I like studying it. But you have to be kind of careful when you study history in fiction. Just look it up for yourself and study it, because oftentimes history, it will be presented from either a modern political viewpoint, which may or may not be accurate to the historical setting, or will be completely and totally inaccurate, and you should really take a look at it and study it for yourself. If you see a historical reference, look it up. See if it's accurate or not. And yeah, sometimes history has changed certain storylines to fit the current storyline, which, you know, which is understandable, but it's not necessarily the best thing to do, at least if you're studying history. So that's why I recommend you study it. Also, another note, then the game, there's supposedly going to be, I'm not sure if it's a DLC or a DLC downloadable content, or if it's a going to be a certain game mode that's going to be added later on, but they've just released word that the newest Assassin's Creed game, Origins, which as of making this hasn't come out yet, is going to have an update sometime in, let's see, when is the update? Sometime next year. That will actually, it takes place in Egypt, and it's actually going to have an update that will show you how, you know, straight-up historical facts about Egypt, about how the life was lived, about such things as mummification, and how they did all that stuff. And it's a really, really cool idea. I wish, you know, they would do something like this for this game, so we can get a lot to study Victorian London even better. I wholeheartedly approve of that. So, if you love history, yes, be respectful for history. Yeah. But basically, yeah, if you love history, look at the history and study it. In the fiction, if you see a historical reference, look it up and make sure it's accurate, make sure it's, you know, really a good thing. And, yep, that's really about all. Keep up with the history. Like and subscribe if you like this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.